Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of the Specfast for Dinner Club, starring my compatriot Nico over here. Nico, why don't you introduce yourself to the room? Say hi to Larry, since he might be the only one here.
Son of a bitch, if I'd have known Larry was going to be here, I'd have pulled the Justin Bieber Siege 3 variant he did back in the day.
Some of Larry's comics variants. Yeah, I look at some of my books sometimes. I didn't even know I was buying them from Larry back in the day. That's how good he was at getting them, out into the ether of.
Dude, he was on Bieber before the roast, before Bieber was cool. So shout out to Larry.
Yeah, that's
I'm Nico, your weekend update correspondent with Comic Book Invest. I am your comic book strategic investment Tales from the Flipside correspondent. This Saturday on the Tales from the Flipside YouTube channel, I'll be joined by Jimmy Palmiotti. For the uninitiated and unaware, he is, to me, comic book royalty, and to Gary, the best personality on Twitter. He is known to some for creating the Luke Fox, known to others for his work with Joe Quesada and Ash, known to most for about 100 issues of Harley Quinn, has a very prominent marriage to another beloved comic book creator. And I'm really excited that he's going to sit down with me. For me, the best part is he's a collector. Look at the guy's IG page. It's crazy. He actually collects books like the rest of us. So I'm really excited to talk to him about comics, about what he likes, about how he collects, and those sorts of mundane things that are profoundly interesting to folks like us.
Yeah, that's a huge score. I mean, you started out with Riff Raff Like Me, and now Jimmy Palmiotti. I mean, come on, Nico. Must have been that change of address must have really elevated you in the speculation world all of a sudden. I don't know, but anyway,
who knows? Pretty soon, I could be accepted by others.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves yet.
Okay, makes more sense. All right.
But and just in case if you haven't been watching Nico on Tales from the Flipside, it's a Monday night show that you can. It's increasing in popularity. I don't know. I don't want to attribute that to Nico necessarily. His head is already too big to get in that frame. That's why I letterbox us here. But also just the fact that he's not only is he known for his market watch, but also his sparkling internet capabilities, I think, have become the running gag on that show.
Yeah, sure, yeah, right? It's a running gag for everyone but me.
Yeah, that's but you know what's great? You save all your internet problems for them, and we knock on
wood. What is with that? What is with that? I don't know if it's like 6 people at once, if I'm inadvertently hosting it from my agrarian 2G network here in the hills of West Virginia, or it makes no sense. But you and I don't seem to have that problem. I have no good explanation for that, but we'll count my blessings, not my problems.
Yeah, that's good news for us to have. And thank you. We had normally we do our Sunday morning show. Sunday was Mother's Day, but my daughter was also feeling a little ill, so Nico was kind enough to reschedule, and I said, let's pop in this great old Tuesday evening slot, since nothing else really seems to be going on here.
I got really comfortable on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, I thought you might like this slot again.
Yeah.
I like to say hi to the chat. Carter, Mel's in the chat. Patrick, we're just going to hang out. We're going to, you know the format by now. We're going to talk about some books. We're going to go over some news. You will not have to go through any Star Wars books with me, Nico. You've been through enough.
Thank God. Listen, I was about ready to kill myself.
I have a long box, chock full of Star Wars books. I pulled out a short stack. I was going to do it around May 4th, and then all of a sudden, CBSI, the S must have stood for Star Wars, because everything on that was coming up Star Wars. And I know you did that interview with Mike, right?
That was cool. That was Morello's a saint. Yeah. And when we were talking about his props, and he was telling me about hi, I've got footage from A New Hope that no one's seen but me and George Lucas. I mean, I literally, had to pick my tongue up off the floor and roll it back into my mouth. I have not delved deep into the newfangled Star Wars mythology, but it appears that it's not simply CBSI. every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's got like a YouTube show or a fledgling like a website or whatever, like they're all obsessed.
But
I mean, it's wild. So, there's money to be made there, but it's not my thing. I'm not saying that it'll never be my thing. There's such a learning curve for me. I wouldn't even know where to start.
I mangled the names alone. Wait, I'll mangle a name later. Don't worry.
Yeah, and not to belabor the point or beat a dead horse, but there was a time where at least when I was collecting comics, if a property didn't begin in floppy format, but started as a cartoon or a film and was subsequently adapted to a comic book, it was a second-class comic. Right, whether it was Transformers or G.I. Joe or Micronauts or whatever, Akira. I mean, it didn't have to necessarily even be like a mainstream property. People were just like, meh. Those days are over now. And the final nail on the coffin may be these Star Wars books. There's so much going on there. If you're thinking about diving deep on Star Wars, my only suggestion is to pick something that you believe in, and as opposed to trying to chase every single book. I don't think there's a lot of upside to that, but I try to get real focused on a handful of characters that you really believe in, maybe a half a dozen or a dozen if you want to get wild, and go deep on them. I wouldn't try to collect.
You gave more Star Wars already than we needed already. So
okay.
we've already. Oh no, we've gained viewers. So that's a change for us. So no, but you're exactly right.
Shit's popular. I don't get it.
I think one of the big reasons, and I brought this up in the chat last night, was I think this nostalgia-driven spec is really starting to come out now, and we've spoken before about when you have two groups of collectors come together, that's only good for you as a seller, as an investor. That's good for the hobby because it brings multitudes of different sort of fan bases together. And for me, if you went back 6 months, 9 months, Star Wars was, it was sort of plateauing out. There wasn't any like great call. And now all of a sudden, these books, Star Wars Legacy, that book, I think I showed back on a huge show not too long back. And people were saying, oh, that's a garbage dollar book. That's you can't, those are all over the place, which is still true. Those books are out all over the place. That's a dime a dozen book. But all of a sudden, all of these sort of the Darths and all these characters sort of bring out the really knowledgeable Star Wars base. And for me, it's just sort of like, I have to follow and say, okay, which way is it going? And I'm like, okay, Doc Afra I can get behind. Those are easy books to collect. There are some great little variants like OzCon variants, but I cannot go down that rabbit hole. I go down too many rabbit holes in Marvel, DC. Star Wars is its own, literally separate universe. So no more Star Wars talk tonight, we promise. We're going to come together. We're going to talk a little bit about limited / miniseries, and depending when you sort of came into the hobby, they used to be called miniseries. When I was coming up, and my first one really that I bought off the spinner rack was the first Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. I remember buying that right off, and all of a sudden I fell in love with books at that point, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I'm like, miniseries, what's that? 1 of 12, and I'm like, I wanted to read more, and then I got into Uncanny X-Men and other books, and that all happened. 85, was that Secret Wars around that? I think that's the year it came out. So we're going to go into a little bit about the history, right? And then we're going to sort of flow through. But before we do that, I know there was some news this week, and I like to sort of warm us up a little, get us rolling. And I like that opportunity to screen share.
I'm gonna eat my ice cream while we talk.
Eat it up.
I brought a treat.
I just wanted to show you this. I did my own show yesterday, and at the same time, we had Nico on his show over on Tales from the Flipside. So I was showing Deja Thoris, this great Frank Cho cover. They were showing Wet, a sort of gourmand bathtub magazine, which of course featured Matt Groening's first work on Life is Hell, I think, right? Was that what it worked out to be?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I don't know if it was called that back then.
Yeah, I'm not that sure what he was looking for back in there, but I was looking up that Wet magazine and the whole history of it, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you could have been watching this, or I dropped my show after, so you can enjoy both. But I wanted to show a few a few things that went on in the news this week. First of all, this was something that I noticed. I don't know if you saw this at all, Nico. They announced that Marvel was going to have several of their books that were had come out in print already, finished in digital editions. So that included Hawkeye Freefall, Ant-Man, Ghost Spider, which was really surprising. And reading that, my heart sort of sank a little because I'm like, wow, a couple of those books I've been tracking some spec on, and Ghost Spider, they're about to have the whole Gwenom thing pop up. And then I saw that and I said, oh, what's going to happen to those books? And, Marvel's done things like
we kind of anticipated that, though, didn't we?
Yeah, I
thought they were going to do a restart, that it was like a fresh opportunity for them. Love to launch those number ones.
Yeah.
Any excuse to pump up sales.
And ironically, finished a couple minis, right, in digital edition. We're talking about minis today, but minis, again, sort of the limited series, the sort of the Rodney Dangerfield of comic book, the comic book corner of sort of getting no respect. And I'll tell you, the Hawkeye Freefall, for anyone who had a chance to read that book, Matt Rosenberg and Otto Schmidt, a fantastic artist who does great Green Arrow work. They brought Ronin back in, and it was really it was a great series. And I have to say that I usually tend to shy away. I read so many main titles that unless the mini is really going to grab me, but that was a great one. Ant-Man, I don't know what was going on with all those insect-based villains that people were trying to hype up. To me, villains don't raise any spec potential for, even if you're a top tier. If you're looking at like cast-off sort of swarm villains, then you're really, you're digging in a hard place to try to find spec. And I think that is what I'm hoping we sort of get a reset button now as we sort of enter back into the print age of comics again. That we sort of calm down a little in terms of what are we looking at? Like, people are still going to go after beautiful covers, and those are some of what I showed up on the show yesterday. But I think that story driven stuff, and I'm glad Marvel's pulling back on Empire a little, which is their next big event. They don't have any books coming out really until July, I think end of June, on that title. And that they had actually released a prelude on that. So they're going to try to slow that down, really get the readers back involved. It was off to a good start. The art was great. The story was great. And Mel's right. Restarting books. Marvel, more than anybody, starting with issue 1. How many volumes of The Punisher have there been? 13, 14? How many Wolverine? I pulled out 17 number 1s the other day. I was pulling through as I was going through. It's crazy. But the problem is Marvel knows that we will continue to buy number 1s, and you'll throw a 1 to 100 and people won't even buy the issue 1 high ratio variant anymore. They'll wait for issue 2 or 3 where they know that print run's going to drop substantially, and they'll just chase that 1 to 100 book, which brings me up to, I wanted to show this. And the reason I wanted to show this was a cover that people saw way back. This was the Zafino Venom 25. This wasn't even the highest ratio.
Glorious cover, though.
Yeah, beautiful. And I have another beautiful Zafino to show later. This was a 1 to 50, and I'd shown this way back, and then of course they got delayed. And on Twitter, I've been following a couple interesting sort of comic podcasts and people, and we were talking about what's going to happen to these sort of incentive ratio variants when you're basically just getting print back into stores again. People are trying to keep their shops alive. What is it going to look like? Are these books even going to make their way out to stores? If you bought them online, are they going to, I've had this in my queue since probably January. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with these books. They have to have been printed out there, right? Venom 25 is coming out. This is going to be Marvel's sort of big relaunch. That's a big flagship of their title. It's the end of the Venom Island storyline, I believe, and then it's going to pop off into that appropriately named Virus character, right? Who was supposed to premiere in the Free Comic Book Day. He may premiere in this as well. We don't know for sure. I've seen sort of conjecture about where he might appear. So we spoke a little about variants, what will happen with those. Then I started to look through, and I'm going to do a speed round here. So here's some of the big news that came. So we saw Ball and Chain, right? This small book from Homage Comics. All of a sudden, it got picked up.
But who's got it now?
Wait, say again.
Well, you keep going. I got interesting news. You'll be excited.
Oh, I'm very excited about this. So as soon as we saw this news, so again, this is why Twitter is sort of my favorite sort of medium. And I know people love Key Collector and they get these alerts, but as soon as I saw this, I knew people were going to race over to eBay. It was sort of, the place to go. I went right over to Amazon, and 1997, I bought the whole mini. And let me tell you, when I looked through, beautiful, beautiful condition, 1 to 4, $20. And I saw this book going for like $39. It was going up to $40. This is a book that, please, if you have this book in your collection somehow, it's a book you want to be selling. It's not a book you want to be buying at a premium of $40. These two just did another movie together, Jungle Cruise, I guess, for Disney. They must really like working together because now they're doing this sort of superhero couple series. This is one that if you find any cheap copies, these will be sitting around. Again, remember, when stores start opening up again, you're going to see a lot of these long boxes. This was a big news came out today, right? Sweet Tooth finally officially confirmed that it is going to be a series. Robert Downey Jr. is producing it. Josh Brolin is involved in it, or James Brolin, Josh Brolin. Which one's the dad? James Brolin, I guess, right? The father's involved in this, and also our friend Will Forte from Last Man on Earth, Last Man Standing, Saturday Night Live. What were you going to say, Nico? You had something to say on Ball and Chain, by the way, as I kept rambling on?
Our friend James Hake at Scout Comics, they've got the rights to Ball and Chain. I would expect big things from them.
Wow.
It looks like they're going to be producing an ongoing book, and because of that, I humbly disagree. Now, I'm not trying to suggest somebody runs and spends, like $200 on a raw copy or something crazy. But that's a keeper for me. I'll be looking for those books and trying to stack them away. I don't think they've reached their peak. I think there's going to be a fever pitch because of Emily Blunt and The Rock being involved. And I think there'll be many different peaks and valleys with respect to that book. I think that will probably be the linchpin of Scout Comics here in the very near future. I think that'll be big things for that publisher. And I mean, kudos to Scout Comics. I'm a big fan of James Hake. I think, he's like a comics guy who's in the CEO spot there. So I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, that's great news for them. That's a great anchor property for them, and that is big news because again, sometimes you see
it kind of changes the analysis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow, that's great. So this is you hear it here first, unless you heard it before that, and then you hear it.
I don't think anyone's heard it anywhere but here.
Wow, so that's an exclusive right there. So that's a Nico exclusive breaking news. It happens here.
Don't tell James. He might yell at me for
no. I definitely don't. We'll our 10 of your 11 down to 10 viewers. We'll keep it to themselves.
That was James. He just got offline.
Or that's someone who only has one window open and go on to eBay to get that Ball and Chain at $40.
It's not a bad buy.
Jeff Lemire also announced that Sweet Tooth is actually coming back for his second series, and right now they're illustrating that. That's getting ready to come out again. $62 was what it had just gone for, that issue 1. To me, that was probably the lowest you'll see that book going for now. And that was like, there were a lot of auctions up for auction now, hitting that $40, $50 range with a couple days to go. So here's an interesting one: the Joker 80th anniversary.
And for the record, with Sweet Tooth, look for the last issue.
Yes, well. Now you're giving that's going to be what we're talking about with our limited series about last issues on things.
Yeah, but that's not a limited series. That went on for like forever, didn't it?
How many issues did that go on?
I thought it went like 60 issues or something crazy.
Did Sweet Tooth go that far? Someone will tell us in the chat over there. Yeah, I know it was. I know it was a few dozen. I didn't even know it got that far. So anyway,
it was like 24. I don't know. We'll have to think about that.
So this is a Ben Oliver cover for Joker 80th anniversary. And why, this is going to be the book now that's going to all of a sudden make those Punchline books take off again, right? Because we had some panels revealed that we're going to get Punchline's origin in that Joker's 80th anniversary. I was looking at some of the books for what they've been going for, 9.8 of, depending on what you think the first appearance is. So we have here Batman 89. 9.8 just went for 118, right? And then I said, okay, I was curious what Year of the Villains went for. Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen, 120 it went for. These both were sales today, ending within $2 of each other. I think really interesting. the market, you never really see the market that close on two books, especially with a first appearance and sort of like a first cameo.
Yeah, that's silly though. The Hello Risen book's the clear winner, right?
Yeah. So I'm wondering why people are still chasing that 89. And I brought that 89 up early. That, like I said, I went into my shop. They weren't even selling it. They're only giving it to regular customers. And the guy gave me one for $4, and I put it back. And I think I sold it for like $60 online at that point or whatever it was. And I'm like, yeah, that's, I'm not big on these whole sort of chase a character that's been invented within the last 5 years. But she could be that rare sort of popping character. It seems like she's ignited something. So get ready. Punchline Fever is going to be starting up again, and it will start with that Joker 80th anniversary coming through. Couple books coming back just of interest for spec value. Red Mother is about to return, coming back June 3rd into, and you're going to want to really, keep track of which books are coming back when. Crowded, which we brought up recently, talking about Image books. Volume 2 is coming back June 24th. That's that Rebel Wilson series. And again, just keeping an eye on Twitter, what's going on. We've seen Tom Taylor talking a lot about this 7 Secrets. Tom Taylor, to me, I've spoken about one of the most, not underrated per se, but probably one of the prestige creators, especially at DC right now. If you look back what he did with Injustice, if you look at what he did with Earth 2, which I'm reading back now from the New 52, he does amazing alt-world things, and now in his own sort of sandbox, his own little play box. So he's been showing this, and the artist started to tweet out, Danielle DeNucolo, what are the 7 secrets? So he started to show some of the character work on there. Cool looking designs, little Umbrella Academy-ish, right? So we're starting to see some of those characters come forth. So this is Tom Taylor's new book. We saw this, speaking of Star Wars news, and something we knew anyway, that Katie Sackhoff, who I know only really from Battlestar Galactica, which is actually being revamped as well. Another book I think you've spoken about maybe to look out for.
Only that one girl that I like, but I wouldn't necessarily say buy them anywhere other than
I always want to call her 7 of 10, but it's like number. Yeah.
6.
Yeah. But I have the 0 cover with her on it. Yeah. And there's a couple great variants of her. But so she's going to be actually in The Mandalorian. So who isn't in The Mandalorian, I guess, is the question now.
Here's kind of the issue with this one. I don't think there's any comics that correspond to her.
No, in fact, the only thing I really saw were a lot of like cards, like cards numbered up to 99 of her, like signed by, and I'm like, okay, that's another rabbit hole. That's why Star Wars, again, interesting, right? Like some of these characters who have their first appearance not in comics, and now this will be one of those characters that people are going to be seeking out that they can't get yet. We talked about Prof a little, but why even bother talking about that? Reanimator, which has had a couple books out in the past on a Kickstarter right now. Those are those kind of books, find cheap, and the interest is coming out again. I brought up Dreadstar. Dune has been acquired. Boom is going to do a prequel to Dune, and that's getting a lot of attention now. So keep an eye out for when that gets released.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Dune, if it's a success, paves the way for Saga.
Yeah, that, and I think this
big budget R-rated films.
Film or series? Do you want out of Saga though? Do you really want to film out of Saga, or do you
no?
want?
I'd like it. Yeah. Well, it depends on who's doing it, right?
Yeah, that's.
But ideally for me, HBO.
Sorry, I'm reading. I'm always reading what Larry's saying in the thing. Lock and Key getting ready for their next installment to come out. Popeye coming through again, and everyone knows what those Popeye variants did way back. So if Popeye gets back on the radar again, some of those books could heat up. Those tough to find ratios. Everyone knows that 65 zombie cover from way back. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of anti-spec, right? So sometimes we're always looking at what to follow as opposed to what not to follow. So there was an interview just recently in Den of Geek, and they were talking about the Hush villain in Batwoman and how they've really totally changed the origin to make him a Batwoman villain connected to Alice in this one. So what we're noticing is that a lot of these characters coming out of sort of WB, that sort of the CW universe, they don't sort of adhere
dead forever
playing rules, right? Yeah. Well, those Hush books have they always sell, but for me, that's like, I never want to break that series up and sell his first appearance anyway. I like that whole Jim Lee run. Like,
yeah, for the record, that might be the modern Batman ratio variant that started all of the high-end variants, that Diamond Roundtable book.
Yeah, it's quite possible, because what year was that? I want to say
maybe 09.
Yeah, I should grab it.
Could it have been 09?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, was it about 11 years ago? Yeah, I guess it was about a decade ago, right? That makes sense. I'm trying to think. Okay, and the last thing I just wanted to show. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, if you hate the modern variant market, it all started there with Hush.
Oh, also all that news about Ironheart and then Jim Zub's coming out and saying nothing officially announced yet, as far as I know, but it would be wonderful to see her. So again, stop following garbage spec and then wait until it's officially announced. I want to show a couple great, just as we end up and we go into our sort of main of the night. These I've been speaking about these auctions going up. This was Zafino's Lobo art piece that was up, and then I saw.
Can you imagine a world where we get a TV show or on HBO with that Lobo?
No, I like the new 52 Lobo. I'd like the Metro Lobo. Yeah, that's the one we're waiting for. And then Bill Sienkiewicz on an Electra art piece that he did as well. And for me, he's
Lord of mercy.
All-time Electra artist. I know Frank Miller, and that could be sacrilege, but watching Bill Sienkiewicz, especially his late covers, gorgeous stuff. But so that was a quick news flash, news brief. So we wanted to break out some books tonight, and I'm going to bring us back to full circle so you can appreciate us. We want to talk a little bit about miniseries and limited series, and I wanted to let Nico talk a little bit first about sort of what his sort of mindset was on, because I know when I first got into comic investing, miniseries were sort of dead books. Like they would say, oh, that's a hot book and it's going to last for a little while, but then the heat's going to die as soon as that last issue of the miniseries is off the racks. It's going to sort of be out of sight, out of mind. I think that holds true for independent books outside of the maybe even Image books and some of those books as well, but not really Marvel, DC so much, because we tend to see they give chances of characters or they spin a character off, or sometimes it's becoming now almost a place where these writers are digging into some of these miniseries and bringing out little bits of information, and now people are all of a sudden running to chase not only issue 1 of a miniseries, but maybe issue 3 where something happened. We spoke about Wrath recently, right? Where Wrath 1 is a great book.
We shouldn't open our mouth about that. What the hell? That book's like $80 or something now. I got to go sell them. Holy shit. What happened?
And that's because also that Web of Venom Wrath book is coming out, and I just that EM Gist on the motorcycle, that's going to be a nice book to look after.
And I don't take blame for that. For the record, that was Kate's tweet. I was just joking. But holy crap, was that timely?
Yeah, that. But we knew that. But I mean,
I knew it was a thing. I just didn't. It went from like a $15-$20 book to like a $60 buy it now on eBay. I was just
but that's my thing again, Nico. It's really the short attention span of everybody.
Oh, I probably already missed my chance to sell my copies. That's the funniest part of it all, right?
Well, no, you definitely still have chances. But that was a book that Kate spoke about even before,
forever ago.
Yeah, even before when he was doing Guardians of the Galaxy, and then all of a sudden he popped on Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he was out of that book. And I'm like, you don't think that Donny Cates put this character in a book, had him show up to get this bit of information to find someone, and then disappeared again off the scene? I mean, come on, let's think. So just to going back to that series, issue 2 now, because of the Exelon and being the connections to Nolan there, has become a hot book to chase. And again, we talk about if numbers on regular issue 1, if Wolverine is dropping 30,000 copies from a 1 to a 2. Can you imagine what minis drop down? And when retailers are ordering up on those limited series, unless it's a really mainstream popular character, these books really drop down significantly. And then when they start to put variant covers on these limited series, those are books to sort of, keep an eye on. I bring up sort of like this Secret Invasion I've shown before. Obviously, this is the Steve McNiven, a book that was printed like literally probably had 200,000 copies, I bet. But this the Secret Invasion, this McNiven, I think was 1 to 50 maybe. So then you divide 200,000 by 50, you're down to 4,000 copies. So reducing the numbers, and again, it's all about, for me, a condition game, right? Like getting books in great condition, like buy multiple copies, sell the copies that aren't worthy, and then buy more great books in there. So Nico, why don't you talk a little bit, because I'm gonna fill up my glass over here a second, and tell us a little bit of what you got.
Yeah, so Gary suggested that we talk about miniseries. I think he and I are both two people that appreciate comic storytelling and the significance of that, in kind of a real heartfelt way. This was something that was easy for me to do. We joked before the podcast. So again, we didn't talk about any of the books that like I could literally do this forever because these are the kinds of books that I read, right? Like I like Independence, 6-issue miniseries. And then, we talked a little bit about we're going to play is that a miniseries? It's been forever. I read it 10 years ago and then just grabbed whatever the key issue was. And couldn't tell you necessarily what the plot line's about. So it'll be fun. We're going to try, of course, to, as we always do, shy away from real obvious books unless they've fallen off the radar and we think there's hope for them in the near future or in the long term if the price is right. So without further ado, I guess we can talk about before we get started, what I picked up sort of as pickups, right? So like I buy a lot of books and unfortunately, sometimes they don't get packaged real well. One good example of that was these auteurs. I grabbed them from the website, and they were all signed. The problem was they got corner crunched. So after I saw that the package had been quarter crunched and I didn't want to like hate on a creator, I just kind of left them there and that was the end of it. But I like that book. It's something I would be aware of if Leonardo DiCaprio goes ahead and does what he says he's going to do. I think that's a no-brainer. Him being an A-list celebrity, being attached to that, it just makes a lot of sense. That's the little ash can they gave me with it, which has got some cool stuff in it. I think the website sold out, unfortunately, but it was just one that was easy that I thought, everybody should kind of be aware of. Auteur.
Yeah, and I know I saw when did they ship it badly, Nico?
No bag, no board. It was, I think they put it in like a manila envelope. And it could have gotten screwed up a lot worse. But it wasn't super expensive. I mean, he basically sold them to me for cover price, threw in a couple variants, and I wouldn't have had a chance to even read the books.
Yeah, of course. Well, now they're readers' copies, basically, is what they.
Yeah, they're autographed, and they're for me, and I'll be looking for some other ones when I go out. But anyway. I will defer to you henceforth. No more.
Yeah, all right. So
everything else should be a surprise for me.
No. So we never talk about the books we're going to actually show. And I just wanted to start with just like sort of little history in terms of that. So a book that was one of my favorites and one of the old school minis, right? The Contest of the Champions, right? I love the skull cover. This was, of course, the final issue in the series. A book that again, was probably very well, published a lot of numbers back in the day, but tough to find really, really nice copies of. Something that you always think that Marvel could go back to. They've obviously revitalized the brand over the years in different ways, and it's where we met White Fox, and we've seen a couple other characters like the Guillotine thrown in there. But for me, this was sort of that mini that first sort of got me into sort of like seeking out and saying, oh wow, maybe miniseries do have something worth to give, and I'd stopped reading comics for a while, and then all of a sudden I saw on the stands, and I'm sure, to me, one of the most underrated minis of all time, just in terms of the pure art and a writer at the top of their game, and a character that I guess has never really had popularity again in the same way.
Good pick.
The mini. So the Long Shot series by Art Adams, Chris Claremont. This is where, of course, he was introduced. This is issue 2. This was a series back in the day that this was a character who had extreme luck power.
Super popular.
Yeah, and this character got so popular that it actually went from being here to becoming a mainstay in the X-Men, especially during that great Silvestri run. If you remember, he was back with Dazzler and that Psylocke run. I think they went the Siege Perilous around that time. And
Mojo was a popular character too.
Yeah,
comes out of that book.
Yeah, with someone who I never really, and again, Mojo is someone who we're seeing pop up again in a couple of books, but I've always found it kind of like those kid X-Men that drive me crazy. Someone brought up a great character, Spiral, who I think is a cool character out of that too. Spiral, I think, might be one of the most interesting. We've spoken about this mini in the past. Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. To me, this was Kitty Pryde being trained by Wolverine, built on their bond. We've spoken about these two have probably one of the purest relationships in comics that over the years has sort of fallen off again. They tried to recapture it even with the Kitty Pryde Shadow and Flame years later, Paul Smith. And what's interesting about this was written by a guy, Yoshida. You know this guy, Yoshida, Nico? That was actually our friend over from Marvel Comics. Remember who decided that he would write as CB Cebulski? That was his Japanese pen name when he decided
I didn't know.
to write at that time. So this is the book that got him in some hot water after the fact.
Yeah.
So it gotten out of comics for a while.
What a jack off.
Yeah, exactly. I spoke about Secret Wars. And then I'd gone to summer camp, and all of a sudden I saw this book on a cover, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, you remember that?
God, I'm like, what is DC doing? I'm like, what's going on here? I was a big Legion of Superheroes fan. I heard the Legion was going to be involved somehow in this. And I started to buy these covers. And then I remember this cover of the Flash's mask, because the Flash, whenever there's a crisis, a Flash dies, right?
Yeah. Who was the big heel in 0 Hour? What was his name?
Extant, right? Extant.
Yeah. And all we wanted to know was the character's identity.
Yeah. Well,
tell us now.
And you've read stuff over the years with even like Crisis with like Hawk and Monarch, and it's supposed to be Captain Atom and this whole sort of hot mess. So this has been going on forever with these like sort of books on the fly. So those were my sort of seminal mini series that sort of really that got me into saying, oh, you know what? There's more to these stories, and sometimes bigger stories can build off them instead of them just existing in a small corner of the universe. I wanted to show a fun one, and then I'll let you show a few. I can't believe how hard this book is to find. And I see the later issues popping up on eBay more than I see this one. And this is a Nico Henrichon variant for Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers. So you can sort of see it has Throg on the cover, Thor on the cover. I've seen the few copies I've seen have gone for a significant amount of money.
Really?
Yeah, in terms of, like I said, this is one of those books that has picked up interest over time. Throg is an interesting character. Thor Frog, this is not his first.
That's smart, dude. That's a smart buy for somebody who's grabbing them.
Yeah, and again,
it's a long-term play, though.
Oh yeah, well, but again, I'm telling you, the Lock on the Pet Avengers books have been selling pretty frequently online. The later issues, but I don't think you can find an issue 1 out there, at least of this. And Nico Henrichon is a guy who he picked up a lot of interest around that with the Meet the Skrulls mini that came out. He did the high ratio variant for that one. That's picked up a lot of value. And that one, speaking of minis, I don't have it in front of me. That Meet the Skrulls, they are featured prominently in the new Empire, the prologue. That family is front and center. So that's a book that if it's dropped a little, if you can find it, I haven't been able to find any, but if you have a source, look for that Meet the Skrulls Henrichon variant as well.
Nice. Yeah, I like Throg and that Pet Avengers book. I see that, maybe Wave 2, Wave 3 for Disney animated.
Well, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're looking for a friendly series with like featuring all the pets and like even different animals that you can't fit in elsewhere. I mean, because they've had multiple volumes. This is volume 1. There's volume 2.
Yeah. Say goodbye to Paw Patrol. I mean, it'd be the end. Like it would be
a young cover later in the series, I believe. That's gone for a nice amount. There's one where they're all sort of stacked like a totem pole, and that's a really tough one to follow. I'll see if I can find that in the interim. A few other big guns, Nico. I know we're not going to get into tonight. We're not going to talk about House of X or Powers of 10 because we've spoken about them on different shows. But a book that's come back to the forefront because of that series and the Dawn of Alpha is House of M. And House of M, if you recall, this is sort of where beautiful Esad Ribic covers, who did a great Thor run, of course. You'll know House of M because of what happened with sort of No More Mutants, the spinoff after Scarlet Witch had gotten rid of all of the mutants. You know, our Scarlet Witch character who has that great Children's Crusade issue 1 variant. She has popped up as sort of being the Antichrist over in the X-Men books currently. They don't even say her name. She's like the Voldemort of the House of X, Powers of 10 books. So anything sort of related to that event, of the Decimation event also, which is really where we saw all mutants disappear in Genosha. or didn't live in Genosha after, I should say. That's a book that you want to be seeking out. And then just one final one, Nico, before I let you go. Another book that's going to be interesting, the Spider-Woman origin, because this is that, sort of, I know some people were very anti this because Spider-Woman had her origin set up, but this really connected that sort of Hydra angle. And we're seeing that Hydra angle explored in the new Spider-Woman book that's out now. And it's going to be a legacy character. It's not going to be the original sort of mad Hydra scientist. It's going to be the daughter of that character who has actually appeared prior to that as well. So Spider-Woman origin sort of tying into how her sort of parents were Hydra affiliated. This might be a book. And again, these are dollar books worth seeking out as well. Nico, over to you.
All right. So I'll try and stick with some Marvel stuff because you were talking Marvel stuff. I talked about it before. I won't talk about it again for too long, but grab them out of dollar bins before I have all of them. The ones you'll probably pay $20 for. I don't know that that's a bad long-term play. I think that's where we're headed, and I think it's just a smart buy. Easy money. The first time Donny Cates does a comic, I would open it up and show you if we weren't short on time, but we are. It's issue 2 of the Ant-Man and Wasp miniseries. He does a little handwritten stuff in the beginning. I now count all Darkwing Duck books as Marvel stuff because he's on Disney Plus. This was the miniseries. It's the only one that kind of fits with it. Of course, there's really cool homage covers to some of those beautiful Batman Golden Age keys. And then there's the Disney Afternoon books, but I wouldn't discount these ones. They're easy to find under D.
Those are great. The Tailspin books also, which was a 4-issue mini, which I know Disney is going to be bringing back out of retirement with their Disney Afternoon lineup. So those are great. That was that Gladstone Press who put that out, Nico? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah,
and I can't see from the cover, so I don't know if they did or not.
I know it's the same one to put both out. Yeah, all
right. So now, what I'm going to refrain from doing is talking about books like Vengeance. Everybody knows all the covers are beautiful. I grab the later issues because I'll throw together sets and sell them on eBay or put them in my long boxes with my non-9/8 candidates. Right. I'm going to refrain from talking about the Blue Marvels. We all know to pick those up. They're easy too. Okay, but here's the ones that you probably forgot about. I still like Hit Monkey, right? They're free right now.
So talk about that book. Why did that book heat up again?
So this book heated up for a minute because they thought that they were going to be able to do a Hulu animated series. All right, what I suspect is that if Deadpool gets made, right? And unfortunately, under the current circumstances, I don't know that that's necessarily a foregone conclusion. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is even nervous about it. But if it happens, they'll put Hit Monkey on the big screen unless they do a different version of Deadpool that isn't Ryan Reynolds, right? That's where I stake my claim. We'll see if I'm wrong about that. If I am wrong about that, there'll still be enough people that are like me that you'll have an opportunity to get out of that book and make some money beforehand. So, I think they're smart. I'd pick up the minis. I'd pick up the 2 issues out of Deadpool. We've talked, I think, before about the Hood. I think it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. I grab the ones there. I do the same with Full Killer. Right, this Max series I thought was really good, if for no other reason than a great read. I even pick up his older series, which sells pretty well in a set. I didn't have any in my non-sorted boxes, and I've tried to be committed to like only grabbing books from non-sorted stuff. That's my own selfish motive, and I apologize for that. Angela's, we saw the WWE star. I'm not sure if she's going to be this character or the trans character that everybody got excited about because they thought was going to be in Thor. But again, it's still a dollar bin book. You can snag it. Mel's favorite book because he thinks the Tony Stark hologram is headed to the MCU in some fashion. I don't know if he's right or he's wrong. If he's right, this is the book you want.
Oh yeah.
The variant, either way, this is a great read if you get a chance. They made a ton of different variants.
Now,
And
would you say that's a was that a limited Nico series? Would you say that?
Is it not limited?
That's all right, but don't worry about it. You told me
is this limited or not? I don't. You know.
If by limited you mean they stopped printing that exact book, yeah, we could say it's limited.
Yeah, I made it through like 4 issues. I sort of assumed that it was over.
No, because I think
did it go for like 20 issues and I just didn't pay attention because
I think it almost got to like 12 like maxi series range. I think it even got further. I think, but there were a couple of great those Maleev covers are great though. I love the Maleevs on those.
All right, I have one last one that I'm sure is a mini series, and they're easy to find because they'll misfile them, right? So sometimes they put 5 Ronin in the very, very front of the long boxes before the A's, and other times they'll put it under F for 5. And sometimes the guy who doesn't know anything about comics but gets paid to restock shelves will put it under the R's for Ronin. And no matter what, I'll grab them for cover price. Of course, you want the cover A's, not the cover B's, which ironically, I've got the B's here. I think I did that. I think that's right.
Right. That's one of those books. And it's so funny as I'm digging through, I'm like, wow, there are so many, copious number of minis that we could have pulled from today, right? Like, and it's funny that we haven't pulled anything. We probably won't pull anything that's similar all night, and that's why this is sort of like a little glad bag show. I thought I'd show a few independent books, take a little break in that, and then maybe some DC. One book I continue to love, all the covers of, and all the books of, and the variants of, and the Emerald City Con issue 1. Is all the Lady Killer stuff, and Lady Killer to me is a no-brainer property. Again, didn't have a huge print run at the time. The Emerald City is the way to go if you're going to find it issue 1. But I kind of love every cover, and Joelle Jones did most of the covers herself, and this was just a regular cover for 3, which is
what's a Lady Killer Emerald City variant run these days?
I can tell you when I picked it up, it was probably about a near mint copy was $60 I got at the time. So, and that was, maybe a year ago. So and I'm sure it hasn't been like, it's sort of off the public mindset, even though
it popped for a minute, but hell, you might be able to get one real cheap now if you can find one listed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, it's funny because what's coming from Dark Horse in terms of Netflix, and then what's Dark Horse put out already, we've spoken about before. Obviously, the Black Hammer books are going to be big, but I would say a lot of the Black Hammer minis, don't just chase the main Black Hammer series. Look at a lot of the minis. There was the Cthulhu one. There's Sherlock Frankenstein. There was the really great one about the fighting corps during World War II. So look for, and I spoke about Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy also. The very street level Frank Miller-esque characters.
And I like that variant for Skulldigger. I thought it was sweet.
Oh, if you look at all those variants, I mean, they're actually coming out with the Sam Keith one that I think I showed like a year ago when it was on Twitter, and it ended up being the issue 6B or something down the line. Another one that I always look for, and I think all video game books, the God of War, right? Like this is something, and again, video game properties. I know it's not a mini, and I keep bringing it up. Bloodborne, because that's a book that keeps going on. But I think maybe it did it. I think it does like series within series. So I love that book. This God of War is great, and also I brought up over and over again. God, Uncharted, of course, and especially that Uncharted Hughes. But getting the later issues in that Uncharted, everyone chases the first issue, the Hughes and the regular cover. Those later issues are tough to find, and if that finally gets off the ground with Spider-Man, right, who I think was attached to it for a while, that's perhaps a book to seek out after. Are we going to show something in between that with that, Nico?
Well, video games, the ones I grabbed were the Metal Gear Solids. I think what's his face, Tom Hardy, has got a deal to make that into a film with the guy who did what the hell was the only good Tom Cruise movie where he could like go back and restart his day over?
Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, that guy's gonna do Metal Gear Solid.
That Live Die Repeat, right? And then they changed it to Live Die Repeat when they put it out on like streaming, I think.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like that. I got to figure out what I just found that info out actually from my non-comic friend who told me that, and now I'm like, well, shit. I got to figure out what the damn Metal Gear book is to buy. Because
is that Doug Liman? Is that the guy who's the director of that?
I think that's his name.
Yeah, he did a great movie. Yeah, he would really fit on that. He does hyperkinetic.
I think that's the big one.
Yeah,
the big like dollar book, but I could be wrong. I'm gonna have to look that up. And somebody knows that.
Even the ash cans are nice to out of that series as well. And I know we in the past we've had Edge of Tomorrow. That's it, Ultra Maximus, and then it got changed to Live Die Repeat for the video. Another book that I'm a big fan of, and it's also a Canadian book because we spoke a little bit about Jeff Lemire earlier. These are the variants for Little Bird, which is a series that was pretty much released to universal acclaim. The artist is coming back again with this. If you didn't read this series, it's a really devastatingly like this book stays with you. And everyone who I've had read it, and I know I think Mel tried it and then couldn't get past issue 2 maybe.
That's smart. But it's a good book, man. But I didn't grab them.
Yeah,
I'm glad you did.
These are the variants just because I have the regular covers dug away, but this is something that will be pushed down the line, and I wouldn't be surprised if, even though this came from Image and not huge ticket creators, but this is the kind of thing that Jeff Lemire could get behind in terms of having a little power to push stuff through, because I know he's a big fan of that book. Final thing I wanted to show from there was I was digging through the other day looking for DC Spec, and I love these covers, and I wanted to show. This was not a great event by any stretch, but the Our Worlds at War series. I don't know if Jay Lee did all the covers on this. So I tend to collect different sort of artists and the work that they do, and especially like I love Jay Lee's sort of Batman, his Justice League, his Wonder Woman, which is sort of awesome. These were all the annuals. So this was sort of a series that ran through a lot of DC books at the time, and every annual sort of Nightwing. I think there are about 8 of these altogether. But anything Jay Lee, I'm a huge fan. I think he is probably one of the top cover artists in the game. Anything that I can find of his, I sort of put away. I have a whole Jay Lee short box. To me, he's like a true artist. When you look at his work, he's an artist, right? Like artists are the ones who put him on Bang all the time. What else did I have over here? Mignola, Doom That Came to Gotham, issue 3. Again, funny. This book goes for more than issue 1 or 2. 1, probably because it's tougher to find. 3, because of that red cover. Red covers, if you watch, tend to sell a little higher than just your normal covers. I was talking to someone online about this. But this was Batman and sort of under the Mignola style. Out of the Elseworld series, we know that DC is going to be doing a lot of Elseworld stuff. Very Lovecraftian in nature. That's hot now. So I could see this. Bless you.
Thank you.
A lot of these Elseworlds are just like garbage books that are thrown in. They did so many Batman prestige format books. But this one, Gotham, the Gotham Before Gaslight, obviously was another big one to seek out, and its sequel that came after, which was just him, not Full Circle, but Holy Terror, maybe. Or
there we go. You got a good memory. Yeah.
Red Rain. Yeah, Skulldigger will be a god, Mighty Mel. I predict that will be the breakout character once Black Hammer's established and they start having those books out, because it's Punisher without being the Punisher, basically. So it's going to get and it's pretty ultra violent. So I'll be interested to see how they do it. And I'm going to keep talking, Nico. I'm just going to finish what's on my lap here because I know you have more. So here's a book that's hated by many, but again, I never turn down a great artist's work. And especially, I only grab these if I find them signed, but I'm always going to grab those before Watchman Hughes books again. And again, there were really some really nice variants for this one. These were actually the Hughes one here and this Hughes one. I like that he signed right on the crotch, which is, typical Adam Hughes, if you've ever seen him sort of. But and again, Dr. Manhattan, Adam Hughes, signed cover. these like you find hundreds of these books around. I don't know how they publish so many of these books out there, but when I find signed copies of these, I think I grabbed them in Austin at some point for like $2 a piece. So to me, that's easy money down the line. Another universally hated series, and this is where there's always some interesting things to be made of. Let me see. I'm gonna do something. Let me try this. Let's see if that works. Nope, that's worse. Adi Granov did this variant. This was for a Secret Empire. This is a series that people hated because it basically, told us Cap was a Hydra agent. This one you see a little better. This was the issue 1 variant as well. Why I like this specific series is, one, because some of the variants that popped off of this, specifically like the green tinged later editions of Captain America with the green shield, and also a white cover on the front. I think I have it buried over there somewhere. But also because I think that Secret Warriors, the book we're going to see, is going to come from the Secret Empire Secret Warriors and not from the Secret Invasion Secret Warriors. I know Daisy Johnson Quake is involved with both teams, but if you look at that first team, it's a lot of really C-list, not even B-list characters, C-list characters. When Secret Warriors came out here, and I know there's a David Nakayama and a Robbie Rodriguez 1:25 and 1:50 ratio variant for both of those. That's Moon Girl, that's Ms. Marvel, that's Quake, that's Inferno. It was an Inhumans-based team, but those are 3 characters that you could very easily build Secret Warriors around. Sacto Sanctorum, we're talking about minis, limited series, so we're jumping back and forth across time, throughout space. So you can jump in at any time and join us today. You could leave, get a drink, come back, and I'll probably still be talking. But I'm gonna give Nico a chance. Nico?
All right. So remember we said we weren't going to talk about Star Wars anymore?
Yeah,
we're not. So what I would do is, if you're like me, I'd go back and grab the Magic the Gatherings, right? I think that's the next little after the Star Wars craziness goes on. It's destined for like character development. We'll see how it goes. I think you'll see like those books start to spike. I don't know enough about it to know what the ones are that you're going to want. But that's the first time that Magic the Gathering appears in a comic book. I'd just grab them out of dollar bins, stick them away for the long haul, grab them for 50 cents a quarter. I don't think you'll regret grabbing a long box of Magic the Gathering comic books for $50. I think we're all well aware that Fear Agent's a no-brainer at this point. But what I don't want anybody to forget about are all of those other series that are going to be made on Netflix or elsewhere where the deals have been signed. There's not a prospective development, but an actual project that's coming in the future. Now's the time to pick up stuff like Reborn when nobody cares, the Jupiter Legacy variants out of long boxes for $1, things like Empress or the Magic Order books, right? So there's like a couple different ones.
All the Mark Millar Netflix.
Even the 75-cent Space Bandits, like all the Mark Millar stuff. Now that nobody cares, nobody's paying attention. I think there's an opportunity.
Right.
There we go.
Now.
All up in me. Jeez Louise. All right. Well, the last one is if the Millarverse hits, the one that everybody really desperately wants is not that crap. Everybody wants Nemesis. Now's the time to get a Dynamic Forces variant for $5 or the issue 1 or the second print for $1. I'd think about that for the future.
Yeah, and that's the big. I mean, isn't that the big part of it? Like sort of like looking and sort of being able to predict like what's off the radar now. And we always talk about that zig. Like when they zig, we zag, right? Like that's sort of the mentality you want. You never want to be the chaser. And
yeah, give it 60 days, maybe 90. Those Fear Agents will be it'll be time to buy them.
Yeah,
right?
I'll jump through some stuff really quick, and then I want to so I'll jump really quick here because I have a bunch. So I think also looking at those Superman First Thunders, the Shazam, the Josh Middleton covers, I think we've seen hints of that Superman sort of Shazam sort of crossover. We know they met earlier in other books, but I always think this 6-issue series is sort of, first of all, beautiful Middleton covers, beautiful Middleton art inside as well, written by Judd Winnick of Real World fame. I think another series you're going to be looking at is that Flash Forward series that just came out. This has set the tone for a lot of what we're going to be seeing down the line in the DC universe with Wally West's sort of new status. This was the B cover, in Hyuk Lee, I think. That was the A cover on the other side over there. This sort of is going to be one of those books that, again, this was issue 6, probably tougher to find down the line. We have to talk really quickly, right, about here's one of the maxiest miniseries ever, 52. 52 went 52 weeks, ran across the board. I remember every week buying one of these, and this was actually a really well done, great series that I think could never be replicated again. They tried it with Countdown, did not work nearly as well, but there were some big books down the line. Issue 3, we saw who would eventually become Isis down the line. Issue 7, right? Kathy Kane. Issue 12, Isis. Issue 23, I want to say something happened there. It was either 23 or 26 where there was that brutal death where the crocodile sort of killed Isis's brother, Osiris, as well. Then we sort of spin off into World War III. It went from actually book 50, and then there was a little mini within that mini. So if you've never seen this, a limited series that actually had a limited series within it. So World War III came out. And why this stuff is interesting is because the Isis and Osiris and Captain Marvel, Shazam stuff are all really nice bases for Black Adam. When you're thinking about Black Adam, there's some really, really interesting stuff coming down the line. We know that The Rock is really involved in this sort of property. I could see some of those new 52 books. They heated up at different spots down the line. And then, of course, it went into a mini, Black Adam, by the amazing Tomasi and Doug Mankey, one of the best creative teams in the business. They did an amazing run on Superman. This Black Adam series, tough to find. There are some really nice variants for there as well. Welcome, Gray Man, as well, for joining us today. And then I talked a little bit about Countdown. These Ryan Sook books, as we start to see the New Gods come back, we have the Countdown special for New Gods, and we have the Death of the New Gods. Ryan Sook is another sort of artistic sort of genius working right now on Legion of Superheroes, having his talent wasted, working with that hack Bendis, right? Who DC probably wishes they could give back based on some of that output. And then we saw that Countdown. This heated up for a while. I think maybe first appearance of Nick's Utopia, I believe. And Nick's Utopia really came to, and now if you're not really, if you didn't follow this next series, you won't know who that guy is. But he popped up a little bit in Metal, and he also popped up over in these Multiversity books. And these are the Grant Morrison sketch variants for those Multiversity books. I think they're 1-100s on that run. There are a bunch of different titles in that series. We've seen the Multiversity touched on back and forth down the line. A lot of different types of covers for these books, not just the Morrison ones, but also, that's another book over there. Well, let's talk about that one. Doomsday Clock, right? I think we can agree that I spoke about that Flash Forward book. Doomsday Clock connects into that. I love the sort of the yellow sketch cover. This was the first, I believe this was like the midnight, the midnight variant that came out over there. But they're not done mining this book out there. You're going to see more things pop up when that 3 Jokers series comes out. You're going to see connections back and forth. I brought this book up before as being, there are going to be some probably middle issues in there that sort of sneak up on you. Don't forget about the Mime and who was the other one? It was the Mime and
Marionette.
Marionette, there you go. Who I always thought were going to end up being Punch and Judy from that old Black.
I think they were,
Blue
right?
Beetle. I don't know if it's
how are they not?
I can tell you who she's not. She's not Punchline, right? We know that.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
But like all those Watchmen characters are based on old Charlton characters. I mean, how's that not how are they not Punch and Judy? But anyway,
Yeah, and just real quick, we spoke about I spoke about in the past those JSA, the books that the Stargirl came out of. Stargirl's about to come back. We just saw that. I think that's next week it's starting. And this JSA All Stars, they were all John Cassidy covers. I love that Hawkgirl cover, of course. Dr. Fate.
Can I mention that Hawk Girl's first appearance is like the most underrated spec ever, and I own 0 copies. I feel like
it's in that big Secret Files, that JSA Secret Files, which I have tons of Secret Files books that I'm always digging in for stuff. I think that's the only one anything meaningful has ever come out of. And this is a JSA All Stars that people want because of Stargirl, but I think the whole series together, just beautiful Cassidy covers with the backdrop and sort of and him having them front and forward. Dr. Midnight, interesting character. He had a Prestige mini as well down the line, and it was by Matt Wagner. If you know Matt Wagner, did some great stuff back in the day, back with Mage. I wanted to show also, I heard this book brought up recently, Witching Hour. This was another much maligned creator, Jeff Loeb, but working with a great creator in Chris Bachalo. This was a 3-issue Prestige series done from Vertigo, but I heard some things. I heard Chris Bachalo recently bring up this series as either maybe a continued of the saga of it, or looking at it in another form. So that's a great, beautiful artwork in here. I'd be remiss if I just flashed through and didn't show. If you don't know Chris Bachalo's work,
go full screen.
Yeah, that's sort of, yeah. Let me go. Let's see. There we go. I'll go a little bigger. So if you've never seen his work for like X-Men, he just does this. This is him at his really sort of ethereal. You may know some of the death portraits he's done in the past, but beautiful book, Prestige format, easy to find. Again, these are not expensive books. These are not the pricey books that everyone is seeking out right now. Another book, the Uncle Sam, right? The U.S. Alex Ross covers on both of them.
Hey, and for the record, National Comics have been going for dirt cheap. Those Golden Age beauties on eBay right now. Somebody, if you're into those, now would be the time to buy. Holy crap!
I heard you talking about those recently, and I thought that's a really smart buy. I also always, I can never not remind you to pick up, if you've never read New Frontier and you haven't been exposed to Darwin Cook. He's one of the seminal creators in the game. Back covers as well he did, and he did all the art. And what's amazing about the art in this book, and this was sort of about DC heroes during another timeline, and this is sort of what Darwin Cook's art looks like. So if you see, I mean, it's just sort of phenomenal cartoony artist. You've probably seen his work. He did a whole, they did a whole month of covers. There's a Darwin Cook variant month where they're all sideways covers with just one panel shots that he did. Beautiful work. If you've never read it, well worth picking up. It was adapted into a pretty good DC animated series. I can't imagine the scope of this ever coming from what DCU puts out on any bigger basis. Yeah, you know, Iron Fist sort of books dirt cheap, right, as well. This was the Immortal Weapons. This was one of the variants for that book as well. Most of those characters were introduced during the regular Iron Fist run. There were some really nice variants within that run. David Aja, great artist. But those Immortal Weapons characters, they never really explored to their full extent, obviously. Fat Cobra being the one who gets the most attention. Camelot 3000, just because I love that book. One other thing I wanted to show, you know, Wednesday Comics. So this was another great. So no one can say DC's never tried, right? These came out July 2009, one every week, and what it was a newspaper format with some amazing creative teams: Azzarello and Risso, Busek and Joe Quinones, Arcudi and Bermejo, Kyle Baker, Gibbons and Ryan Suff, and it was a big open up sort of comic newspaper, and it told different comic stories within, right, of Deadman and all these sort of great fringe level characters. I love that it's yellowed over the years. I love that it's newsprinty. I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 of them all together. They were reprinted in a beautiful large print hardback. What a great little book. And you can see on the back also, it had like Ben Caldwell, Wonder Woman, Flash, Sergeant Rock. Supergirl by Palmiotti and Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. There we go, almost full circle. You can bring up Wednesday Comics to him. I'm almost done, guys. If you're still hanging out in here and listening, another series, a couple other quick minis. I love the Dan Slott Arkham Asylum Living Hell one. This is one that we've never really seen explored further. First of all, the Ryan Sook covers, Eric Powell covers on here are all just sick. And again, I wish I wasn't getting such glare tonight, but you can sort of see Eric Powell, known of the Goon, did these covers, and Ryan Sook did this like dark artwork. That's I think that's Harley and maybe Poison Ivy escaping over there. Just that great Demon cover, which everyone sort of knows. That's the final issue again. That sort of red cover final issue. Cheap dollar books. Great story sort of about exploring the history of Arkham and of course the Arkham Asylum. Joker heating up again, right? All the Jokers. We've spoken about Steve Rude, who apparently I've read some stuff on is maybe not a great guy, but you know, that's hearsay, Twitter hearsay. And Dave Gibbons, of course, from Watchmen fame. Another series people should pick up always when they find these 6-issue series, Human Defense Corps. First of all, read it. It's sort of like Aliens meets a little bit. I think Ty Templeton did the writing on it. Yeah, Ty Templeton did the writing on this. Really just 6-issue action book. Worth seeking out. One more and then one final wrap up. The Filth. If you've never read this, 12-issue series by the great Grant Morrison and Chris Weston, who also did another great maxi called The 12. Just very sort of for our times. I think these books, The Filth and also Global Frequency by Warren Ellis, are two books I would be grabbing along with Transmetropolitan, because those are sort of those future sort of post-industrial apocalyptic sort of the world we're living in now. Once we come out of that, you're going to see a lot of things. Like I've been watching that Upload series on Amazon. And it's all about uploading your consciousness. These are those sort of books that they'll be sort of, I think, that future think, almost like William Gibson, Necromic.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't do a really quick, and I'm not going to show the Ultimatum books because we talked about how they're garbage last time, but it was selling for some money for some people. And we're not going to talk about 1602, though it's the best Neil Gaiman maxi series, right? With beautiful Andy Kubert art and Richard Isanove. Super cool. And I guess we're not going to talk about, though I do love the Future Quest books also. I think this whole 12-issue maxi, the Hanna-Barbera property, so underrated in terms of what a great, like from Space Ghost to The Impossibles, Johnny Quest. You know that'll come back again in some form. And this was by Doc Shaner and Jeff Parker, and had really great variants, including Bill Sienkiewicz. But I guess the final thing we have to show a little bit of, right, is like the updated Secret Wars, right? The one that came out. Because I know maybe we should do a whole separate one on that, I guess. It's probably too much to go. Because there were literally, as I ran through here tonight, Nico, I couldn't believe the number of different series for Secret Wars. Oh my God. I counted alone, what I was looking through here, 27 different mini events within that Secret Wars series. Everything from A-Force to Thor's. There was just a big Newsarama article. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time. It's getting late. We've been running for almost an hour and 15 minutes. Anything else, Nico, that you wanted to wrap up and talk about?
I mean, I would grab every single copy that you can get, unless you have to pay a premium, obviously, of traditional horror related characters like Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, Chucky. You see them in these long boxes, snag them. People pay premiums for them. Yeah, Michael Myers, you name it. I think, obviously you've lost your chance for traditional things like Old Guard. It might come back. Last Days of American Crime, that's over for you. That's coming out. But there's still a ton of properties like Ariella and Huck that have already been optioned that people don't care about anymore. And then it's really about like looking towards the future, right? So, the the Bitter Roots, the Fatales, the Criminals, the those sorts of independent books that maybe you ran 6 issues, maybe you ran 12, maybe you ran 24, that could be converted to a television series, that could be converted to a movie. If you can grab them cheap, grab them. If you hear people say like, oh, that's a great read, grab them and read them for yourself so you can decide whether or not you want to make a longer term investment. Secto Sanctorum suggested the Prodigy book, which of course was optioned, and now nobody cares. I think there'll be an opportunity to grab those again cheap when stores start to open their doors and are doing sales. Everything old is new again. The key to doing well in the small dollar comic market is knowing when to be the buyer and when to be the seller. And know your history. Remember those historically popular miniseries that have fallen by the wayside. There's one actually that I just remembered that I need to go buy because I'd made like a mental note, like, oh, those are dirt cheap right now. Go put us back together.
Chrononauts is another one I liked a lot, that popped out from Mark Millar, and that was about like time traveling, like caper series that is very much in his wheelhouse. I think was that Mark Waid book, was it Brilliant? Was that a I think it was Wade and Bagley maybe on Brilliant. Also was a great sort of like take on superhero mystique. And just books we've spoken about in the past on here, from everything from Mouse Guard to, again, I would be buying House of X and Powers of 10 stuff as I find it, as they sort of come up. I keep them on searches all the time because remember, we have a nice little lag here in terms of those X books, but there's a lot of stuff that Jonathan Hickman has dropped already. And I'm not really going to go into too much detail on it, but I'm going to show 1 second over here. 1 second, Nico. I did want to show one section of books, because if you look at what Jonathan Hickman has been doing, and especially what he laid out, I just went back and read every Powers of 10 and House of X book. And I sort of set up a Hickman folder, and let's see if I could share that out.
Smart.
And that's what I tend to do with everything. That's what I tell everybody. Like, you should be setting up like folders of just particular materials that you want to have. And so if I just share this is sort of what my folder looks like. So I pull out panels, I pull out interesting sort of text pieces from there. Let me roll down a little further on that actual thing, just so you can get a better view of it. Does that scroll through as I'm scrolling? Can you see those?
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
So I tend to pull out all of the text pieces. I pull out a character like this character here. I did it for Martha in this Ernst character. This is brought up actually in one of the Sinister, one of his rumor things. This character is going to be coming back in a way in those Sinister Secrets. Of course, this whole thing with the Tarot of seeing Rasputin and seeing the Cardinal. I would keep going back, looking at those books. This whole thing where they actually go into a black hole, they're coming back again, and that ties into some of the stuff that we know happened with Zorn previously. So there are characters and things going on in these books that I'm constantly looking for, looking back, looking at Hickman's Fantastic Four run, looking at his Avengers run, finding out where are those next books. But I don't want someone, coming on. I don't want Key Collector telling me when to buy. I want to have my books ready to sell when Key Collector tells everybody else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because the window is small in this market.
Yeah.
There's a small window. But here's the cool part. Even if you miss the first one, you still got a shot on the second wave. Right?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, if I can hit 8 out of 10, if I'm really doing a good job, when those books hit, man, that's an A+ job. If I can only hit 6 out of 10, I can still, make up my average down the line. After those books have spiked, I've decided which ones are real and which ones are just ridiculous, and picked up the ones that I think are real, so that when they spike again, I can, take my profits, keep one for me, put my profits into my next bigger book or my next onslaught of choices.
And I think, and again, you always want to you want the little fish to be eating the big, you want to keep getting up to the bigger and bigger fish. And if anyone's new collecting out there and you're just, you want to have every week when you look at that top 10, whether you're looking at CBSI's top 10, where you're looking at Key Collector's top 20, you want to be looking at those books in front of you and not be looking online to find those books.
Oh my God, right?
That's the big thing, right? Like when I look at the top 10, when I looked at the last top 30, and I think there were probably 5 books in common, so 25, I had maybe about 10 of those books that I was ready to say, okay, I'm going to sell those books. And now you have to be smart though, and then not chase the other 15.
Yeah, and that's not a dig on either. I'm friends with both of those guys.
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, and I
Gary is too.
Yeah.
What we're trying to suggest is they're reporting the news that the sales of these books are already starting to go up, right? And by reporting that, oh, these books are getting hot, they're gonna peak. Okay, you want to be buying them well before they ever go up, so that when they peak, you can hit the first sale, right? Pop them off, because it's a very rare exception that books that are appearing on those lists are going to incrementally increase in value over time. They're going to go up and then back down and maybe back up even higher. Who knows? Maybe not as high often, maybe not at all. But you need,
right? Option up, right, Nico? And then that's when you should be selling that first wave, and then let that wave keep up, and let it drop back down. Probably not the most tasteful analogy as we're talking about like curves and waves, during COVID.
Well,
but you get what we're saying.
Think more of a violent stock market than some sort of violent illness.
Yeah. Did you say you wanted to show Star Wars books tonight? No.
Jesus Christ Almighty! God have mercy on my soul.
And again,
where's the holy water? Exercise, Gary. Exercise, Gary.
Get it out of me. I've just been waiting. I'm going to end up doing some series. But
now listen, if I wouldn't have sold all my Star Wars books, I'd be on that shit. But I dumped them all because I didn't have the patience to do it. I hope that I can find the patience to do that with some other things, but. It's funny. The stuff I keep and the stuff I'll trash away.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. We're here to help you guys find like what's the next Star Wars, right? Like what's going to be coming down the line. And
for the record, I give the advice I need to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I put my money where my mouth is. I'm buying the nonsense that I encourage other people to. You may see me sell them down the line, but not like here in 5 minutes. I'm still a buyer on, all this stuff. I wouldn't necessarily encourage anybody to pay market price for anything ever, unless it's a serious book for your personal collection, like a big dollar item.
So like I said, like when I bought that my book.
Hey, right? They're all gone, right?
Yeah, of course. And again, I grabbed this because I spoke about this. We were going to talk a little bit about I spec'd up like 3 crossovers to look over, and I was looking, and this was like a $35 book, and I bought it because it was a 2013 first appearance, like first true, I guess, cover appearance of a Transformer My Little Pony thing. They're crossing over. Seems silly, but $35. There are fans of properties of both books that will be looking for something along that line. I know there's at least 1 or 2 out of you who bought it out there. And again,
there definitely are, because I'm seeing the IG posts and I'm like, fucking Gary.
I would say these are books also, talking about crossovers. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters is a big one to be looking for. Nice course, and that's the old school. These are both nice little covers on both those books, and these books sell all the time. Ninja Turtles Transformers, I sold that issue 3. I really loved it. I had it for so long. Someone finally made an offer on it. So that went out.
All right, I only came up with 1, buddy.
Okay, show me your best crossover.
My best crossover. All right. And again, I put my money where my mouth is. Django, Zorro. I absolutely love it for one reason. Tarantino's a wild man. They're dirt cheap. And if he does it, right, because it's a traditional sequel to the film, those books will be bananas. Low print runs, but you can get the variants. Very inexpensive right now. Look, Gary's a believer.
I mean, what are the chances we both have that book
Yeah, it's a 1 in 50, I think.
And again, we haven't talked yet. I think that one's a 1 to 50, and I think you had the 1 to 100 on the. You had the blank variant too, right?
Yeah. Oh, I got them all.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great one. So that was yeah. So there's so I think it always, and I think our big thing is when you're crossing over. Crossovers are great. We've spoken about in the past about the that original Mac Daddy of the Titans and the X-Men getting together, and having Phoenix and Darkseid together. You're bringing together Marvel and DC. You're bringing together Transformers and Ghostbusters. You're bringing together Django and Zorro. I'm not sure they have big fan bases, but Quentin Tarantino has a huge fan base. And
yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as he's on it, it's over.
Yeah, remember, he says he has a limited life in terms of movies. So who knows, a series down the line, doing a prestige series, that book ran for a few issues, right? Down the line.
That he talked about it. It's worth being cognizant of it. So that if you see it, you can snatch them.
Yeah, that's it. And those books are dirt cheap, because I know that was a book I had for a while that like nobody could find that.
Well, this is how hard I fought for those, dude. I bought them from my comic shop. They sent them to an old address. I tracked them, like conned them into sending them back to me, which if anybody's ever dealt with that is a pain in the ass. Okay. They're not trying to do that, but I like begged, borrowed, and stole. Because it was just hard to find. It's hard to find like a 1 in 100 of some random ass independent,
Yeah, I don't even know where I found that book. And I just want to Secto Sanctorum. I wanted to bring up that I love the covers on that book. I'm not a huge fan of Frank Terry's writing. He's doing that new series, the Ravencroft series, I think, which is a little out there, and I think at least it's going to bring back Werewolf by Night, but I think Pestilence got a lot of interest early on. But to me, it's again one of those books from Aftershock put that out. I think Pestilence. I want to say, I'm pretty sure. Aftershock books are tough. There's some good stuff out there. I did, if you look back on my indie special, I don't know if I bring Pestilence up, but I bring Aftershock books up there as well. I would say hold on to it. Can't hurt. They're cheap copies you can dig up now. If you believe in a book, grab it. For me, it's always going to be books that are great reads, and then covers that people are going to find. Nico, trying to find something over there?
I give up. It's not that big of a deal.
All right. So I guess that's pretty much it. It was sort of like a mixed bag show. Probably we've done better, but I'm sure we'll do worse down the line.
Yeah, that's true. And and for the record, this was fun for me because I got to talk about stuff that I really like. Which are these minis, because I'm always rooting for them. A lot of people hate doing independent comic spec. They just, because I think they basically are looking to profiteer on these books. And my point is, you can make money flipping them too, and really promote with your dollars where it matters. Independent writers and independent artists, and independent comics make the world go round. So
you had one, Frank Vogel. Frank, is that how you pronounce his last name? Frank Vogel.
Yeah, I love him. I got him over here.
And let me tell you,
kids.
He's the hardest working independent guy on Twitter, because he's on every podcast. He's popping on. He's talking. He's promoting. He's smart. He's like the Donny Cates of independent books when Donny Cates used to be an independent. So I don't know.
Yeah, right. And for the record, this is how much I believe in that guy.
Well, he's passionate for sure.
Bang.
Yeah.
Bang. That's
and
the metal one.
And the other one is coming from his side. I saw that. Yeah.
Ask me how many retailer exclusive variants I buy.
I know you not a whole lot at all. Yeah.
Right. But I believe in that dude. I believe in his work. He's got a work ethic that I think he's destined for really big things. So likable guy. I had a chance to sit down with him on a podcast I used to do, and thank you for mentioning him. I think that was a big shortcoming on my part not to talk.
Oh no!
Give the guy a shout out because he's doing the real thing.
You brought him to my attention. Then like when I hear about it, then I'll sort of backtrack someone, and I think that's important, really. And I think that sort of is a great way to sum it up. That we're continuing to buy. We're not just saying, hey, look at these books, and now it's on my eBay page. We're saying these are books that are probably going back in my long box, or
I'm not a seller. I can't think of I'm not a seller on a goddamn one of these things, to be honest.
But when you do sell, and when you do have that feeling, like I said, I always have the rule of thumb. If I see an indie book that's out there, and I can get it at cover or below cover, 5 is my usual number. So I'll go in 5 on something I have a gut feeling on. Otherwise, I'm going to pick up one copy of every sort of issue one. Was at least somewhat on the radar, because remember, everybody's looking at the same sort of things now, right? It used to be where information was disseminated out into a narrow path. Now it's divergent out everywhere. Everyone's looking at the same exact list. So you have to research a little further. And that's we want to help you do that. But to be someone who's really ahead of the game, you have to be reading on your own. And that's the best advice we can give. And hopefully you'll find some great minis out there to read as well. If anything.
Yeah, I lied. I'm sorry. I'm a seller on one book, but I don't have the energy or discipline to actually list it. Well, maybe. Last Days of American Crime's got to go within the next 15 to 25 days, depending on how well that thing does. But it's got a very short lifespan because it's about to hit Netflix.
But they're all going to get these things are all getting a second. Usually they only get a second lifespan. A lot of these things are going to have a second lifespan and a third lifespan because they went out of production. Now it's going to be like so-and-so's back in production again. Oh, this.
Oh no, I think that comes out in June.
Yeah, that's going to be, and along with Hamilton, I heard they're dropping July 3rd on Disney Plus. So I know where I'll be
cool.
Watching Hamilton finally, because I couldn't afford those tickets.
Me neither, my friend. Me neither.
Yeah. So we did the core 90 minutes for the evening.
It was fun. It's always fun.
I'd like to sign out as always. It's a pleasure. Maybe because I didn't have bourbon, I was drinking water. I felt that was a little off on my game tonight. But we do what we can. That's it. Never let them see you sweat. And I'm sweating over here. Have a good one, Nico. And I will check you. When's your next show that you have coming up?
Saturday, Jimmy Palmiotti.
That's right.
Podcast. That's our guy.
I remember hearing that.
Be there, be square.
Yeah. Catch me anytime when I have insomnia. I'll throw up some.
We'll be back. We'll be back the following day, Sunday morning. I might have a Danish. Could be a bagel. Who knows?
And
maybe I'll go crazy.
We don't know what we're talking about yet. So throw some comments. Thumbs up. If you want to throw a thumbs down now and then. I think we've had 1 thumbs down of our 6 shows so far. We need that. Otherwise, we get too big for our britches. So thanks again for listening, everybody. Peace. Happy.
You gave me a thumbs down. Hurt my feelings.
I think it was you. When I was doing these solo shows, I never got thumbs down. But anyway.